Over 50% of medical practitioners experience symptoms of burnout. That's more than almost all other professions. However, this video isn't just for medical practitioners. It's for anyone who does experience burnout. So whether you're a medical practitioner, a lawyer, or an entrepreneur, if you experience burnout, this video will support you. Because I have been in the medical field for over 20 years, I'm going to give some examples of how burnout can show up or why. The constant influx of patient after patient after patient, and the fact that they're getting sicker and sicker. The hundreds of important medical decisions that need to be made on a daily basis and quickly. The online documentation that takes more time than anything else. The frustration of patients who just don't feel well or are frustrated that they're not getting their needs met fast enough. And you end the day maybe finally getting caught up only to get up and do it all again the next day. It's exhausting and unfulfilling. And if you do voice your concerns, they may be invalidated by those higher up bean counters. Burnout is a long-term stress response marked by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and lack of personal value. So I'm a money mindset coach, and I'm also still a PA. So I work in a medical office as a heart failure PA. And I had struggled for years with frustration and overwhelm, and at times really hated my job. I would easily feel burned out because things would just pile up and it was never ending. So I would try to distract myself, which actually made the problem worse. And the reason why this happens is because we weren't taught to make our emotional resilience and happiness and fulfillment a priority. We weren't taught how to de-stress and change our thoughts and our emotions. We were just basically taught to go deal with it. Now, of course, there can always be some improvement in the circumstances. Don't get me wrong. However, there is so much power that we have already right in this moment before even changing any circumstances that can make or break how we're going to feel. We can feel terrible or we can feel amazing. It starts with feeling our truth and changing our story. It's very easy to focus on all the negative shit that's happening at a busy heart failure clinic and blame everyone else of why I feel so unhappy. But if I take a pause and I step back and I actually think about what my thoughts are, what my story is about the circumstances, it can be very eye-opening. So let's use this example of I hate my job and I get irritated every time X, Y, or Z happens. So I easily get worked up, I get frustrated, I get annoyed, I do everything I can to avoid it. And so I might pull out my phone and start doing things other than the actual task at hand. And then in turn, what happens is the stuff piles up, right? Because I'm not getting it done. But I'm so frustrated in the moment that I would rather do that, make things worse in the long run than dealing with things right in that moment. So that's not a very empowered way to be. So I'm going to walk you through a process where you can completely transition the way that you think and feel about your circumstances, like what I just described of this idea of like hating my job. Okay. And I would recommend that you start a daily routine around this. So either first thing in the morning or right before bed. And you will be amazed in just a little bit of time how much can change if you start getting used to doing this regularly. So the first step is that you do basically a brain dump. So you pull out a piece of paper and a pen and you think about a circumstance like your job that is frustrating you, all the work that you have to do, and you just write out all of the things, the horrible, ugly things that you wouldn't want people to hear you think and say. You get it all down on paper. You just basically do a brain dump of all the negativity. Then step number 2 is that you acknowledge and you tune into and you actually write down your thoughts and emotions and your feelings about everything that you wrote in number 1. So if you're feeling really irritated about people at work, well, what are your thoughts about them? Do you feel like they're not listening? Do you feel like they are taking advantage of you? Do you feel like you're being overworked and underpaid? So whatever it is that your thoughts are, you got to get those out. And then what are the emotions that are associated with it? Frustration, irritation, disappointment. Maybe you feel trapped. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel undervalued or underappreciated or misunderstood or not heard. Step number 3, feeling those emotions. This is critical. So we get out all the stuff in number 1. We get a little deeper with those thoughts and emotions that are specific to what it is that we're frustrated with or what we don't like, what our circumstances are. But step number 3 is where the money is, right? So you want to feel, instead of resisting, you want to lean into, full blown, leaning into the emotions that you have around this, the frustration, that feeling of being unheard or trapped or whatever it is that came up in number 2. You want to actually feel it in your body, sometimes closing your eyes and like looking for that sensation, the physical sensation in your body, and really allowing it to be. What we are really, really good at as humans is avoiding this part. We are really good at avoiding discomfort. And so, like I was using my example of I pull out my phone and I do something else because I don't want to feel that frustration. Feeling the frustration would be much better in the long run. And then step number 4 is you release the negative energy, the negative emotions, that emotional charge associated with those emotions, those thoughts. And a very impactful, powerful, fast way to do that is by using tapping. That's how I do it. That's what I do with my clients. I have other videos that show you how to incorporate tapping. But basically what tapping is you use your fingertips and you tap on acupuncture points while saying those thoughts and emotions, all of the stuff that has come up that you wrote down in number 1 and number 2. And you start to release that. When you tap, you turn off the fight or flight response, which is only aggravating and stirring up the emotional response, that emotional charge that you have. So it's really a powerful mind-body tool to facilitate this, to facilitate that release, to accelerate it. And then once you feel the release of some of that negative energy, that negative intense charge, then you can transition to number 5. And step number 5 is tuning into thoughts that make you feel good. What are some thoughts you would like to have? What are some feelings that you would like to have instead of all the other negative stuff? And what kind of empowered statements can you make about yourself? I can handle this. I am doing a great job. I can take breaks if I need and want. I have this all under control. I always catch up. So you get the idea. These are thoughts that are much more empowering and show that you're in control of your emotions and the situation, and they just feel good. But it's way more beneficial, it's way more powerful and impactful if you go through all of the steps before you rush to number 5. Because what happens if you rush to number 5 and you haven't quite gotten to the truth of what's really bothering you, of what those underlying thoughts and emotions are, then they just continue to build up in your system. And they'll surface at some point or another, like in the middle of a workday when you're getting really pissed off, right? So the more you're able to release this stuff, and like I said, start a practice of a daily routine, the more you start to release this stuff, the less you will automatically be triggered when something annoying happens at work. And you will be amazed. It'll change your life. It'll change the way that you show up. It'll change the way that other people show up for you, which will actually change your job. You won't feel as burned out. It'll be amazing. So overall, just to kind of summarize, your thoughts can make the situation either better or worse. And yes, there can always be circumstances that could be improved. But until that happens, you get to decide what you want to think about your circumstances. Do you want to think thoughts that make you feel burned out? Or do you want to think thoughts that make you feel relaxed and in control and happier? Thank you for tuning in. Be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my weekly videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.